Welcome to Behind the Warrior, a podcast presented by the EOD Warrior Foundation. This series will focus on resources, interviews, and topics impacting EOD warriors, their families, and the military community at large.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Warrior. I am your host, Maria Schabla, and today we are very excited to be speaking to Marine Corps EOD veteran, business leader, and soon-to-be PhD, Joe Fetzer. Welcome to the podcast, Joe.
Thank you so much, Maria. Really looking forward to today's conversation and being here with you this morning.
Yeah, me too. So, Joe, I always like to start from the beginning. Can you tell us where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
Yeah. Hey, before we get in there, can I say something real quick?
Yes, you can.
Yes. To everybody listening to the podcast this morning, I know, Maria, we're going to, talk about me and my experiences and whatnot, but I really don't want it to be about that. Instead, for the people that are listening, our audience, I want this to be more about engaging in the conversation, and them participating in that. So as you're listening, as these questions are being answered, think about how that applies to you, and what value you're getting out of the conversation and what you can take away from this. All right, less about me, more about you and the experiences and resources and support and programs that are out there for the veteran community.
I love that, Joe. That's so awesome. Our first interactive podcast. So get your notebook and get your pen ready, and we're gonna just dive in there. But back to you. We do want to know a little bit more about who we're talking to and who we're going to be learning with today.
Sure. Yeah. So Joe Fetzer, I was born and raised in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which is near and dear to my heart. They're kind of in South Central Pennsylvania, small town. Yeah, really small town USA, one of those old Rust Belt towns that faces its own challenges now, but I grew up in a beautiful area on a small little farmette in Johnstown in Richland Township. And my childhood was great. A bunch of running around, being outside. We had a few animals, and it was an adventure.
Awesome. That sounds cool. So you joined the Marines 5 days after you graduated high school. What was your inspiration, and did you go straight into EOD?
Yeah. So when I joined the Marine Corps, I actually did the delayed entry program. So I think I joined somewhere in my it would have been somewhere in my senior year of high school, but I kind of had all the paperwork, everything signed, parental consent, all that stuff done before graduation happened. So I already knew, what what my ship date was going to be, I already knew what that was going to look like after graduating high school. So I made that commitment, before graduation, just in the sense of I knew what I was doing, right? I was going into the Marine Corps. I was going to leave Johnstown. And I was going to do something else. I was going to do something different. And that time came, 5 days after graduation, had a little bit less than a week to, say bye to family and friends, and then head on a bus down to Parris Island, South Carolina. And even talking about that now, today, the Marine Corps, and taking that step right after high school, the Marine Corps gave me the foundation to my adult life, really. And it has just served me tremendously well throughout my service and in my civilian life too. It has provided me that foundation, what I think is to excel, and be successful in whatever that looks like. But the Marine Corps has anchored me in values, in leadership, in problem solving, and trying new things. And that all starts with taking the steps, to join the service and committing to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what was the inspiration though? Had you always wanted to join the military? Did you have family in the military?
I was probably like the easiest candidate for the recruiter,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that I really never thought that I would join the Marines, and the recruiter reached out to me. We sat down and I started learning about the world's finest fighting force. And it was just kind of this call to action, I want to do this. Yeah, sign me up.
Wow.
And in fact, I might be wrong here, but I did listen to the Marine Corps birthday message
Mm-hmm.
this year. And I can't remember if it was the commandant or somebody previously was talking about how even before somebody joins the Marine Corps or the military, there's kind of this innate call to service, right? Where you're naturally inclined to raise your right hand and join the United States military. In hindsight, looking back, I do think I felt like that, where my call
Wow.
to act, yeah, well, again, there's a call to action there, right?
Yeah.
You're taking a big step by joining the United States military. And you can't tell me that anybody who makes that commitment doesn't demand more from themselves, doesn't accept challenge, doesn't want to make an impact. Those are all things that get cultivated through military service. And even linking that back to uh, what I was saying previously, in the sense that it's provided me that foundation to build off of those laurels and values to continue to be successful here in the civilian world. The Marine Corps provided me that foundation, hands down.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome, Joe. So, how did you get into EOD?
Yeah, well, and that's another great question. The Marine Corps is unique in the sense that I think it's the only branch that you can't initially join explosive ordnance disposal to be a bomb tech. In fact, you have to have so much time in grade and so much time in service before you can go through the assessment and selection process to become an EOD tech in the Marine Corps. So when I initially joined, I was an artilleryman with 1st Battalion, 10th Marines. I spent some time there. I also did a tour on embassy duty. And then after that, it was either go back to field artillery or do something else. And, clearly I worked with EOD techs, just throughout my time in the service. Clearly I knew what the field was. And I just thought it was a good point, in my military career to transition into the EOD field. So I went through the assessment and selection at Quantico EOD. And yeah, from there went to EOD school. And then I did a tour out in the Asia Pacific with 9th Engineer Support Battalion. But that was my next step in that military career, wanting to be an EOD tech, wanting to participate and serve in a critical skill capacity. Again, that call to do more. Explosive ordnance disposal is inherently, it doesn't matter if you're working on a problem in the continental United States or working on a problem, overseas somewhere. And inherently, it's a dangerous occupational specialty, right? It's a dangerous MOS. There's a lot of skill that goes into performing that job. And it was just another way for me to challenge myself to not only say, yes, I can do this, but again, more of that call to action to do more. In the Marine Corps, it's an all volunteer field. All right. So there, I don't know if it's like that in the other branches of service, but in the Marine Corps, it's an all volunteer field. So
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it is all volunteer across all 4 branches. And I think I even remember talking to somebody recently about like That's why diversity is a little bit challenging, because it's all volunteer, because you can't just select people to join. You know, they have to be willing to do that and to, like you said, join this incredibly dangerous job. So very interesting. Can you share just a couple highlights from your career in EOD?
Of course. I mean, the best group of people, brothers and sisters that I have ever worked with. And I mean, that was my experience throughout my entire military career and even post-military service, as I continue to work with, brothers and sisters in arms that are now part of the civilian workplace or world. But highlights everywhere from Afghanistan to Africa to Moscow, Russia.
Wow.
It was just, yeah, and that was throughout my time in the Marine Corps in its entirety, and throughout the Asia Pacific, and even in the continental United States as an EOD tech. Just going to those different places, just seeing those different things, supporting missions, participating in, the traditional events like the Marine Corps Ball and whatnot. Those are all highlights of my career, and those are all experiences that I definitely can continue to carry with me. In fact, even talking about that now, it makes it a little bit surreal in the sense that when I was supporting the diplomatic mission in Moscow, there were times where we were flying back and forth to Kiev in the Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you can do that right now.
No, I don't believe you can. No.
And, even with what's going on in Israel, there were times where I've taken a plane to Tel Aviv and drove to Jerusalem. And you can't do that right now. So,
wow.
Yeah, with all those experiences, it gives me an attitude of gratitude in the sense that I was privileged enough to have those. All right. I was privileged enough to serve in the United States Marine Corps, support the global war on terror, and have the opportunity to visit these places and ultimately help people. That's a privilege. And yeah, I'm grateful for those experiences, and I'm grateful for the people that I served with, and get to the EOD Warrior Foundation and get to, continue my service really, even with conversations like this today.
Wow. So, Joe, you were unexpectedly med boarded after 10 years. Can you tell us about your transition out of the military and some hurdles that you had, and maybe looking back, some lessons learned?
Yeah. Med boarded after 10 years. In fact, I came back from a mission. I was in Thailand, and it was time for me to get another surgery due to a service-connected injury. And, prior to that, anybody that's gone through any of this stuff, just you go through surgeries or, try to get better, right? And it just came to a point where it was becoming too routine, where it just it wasn't working anymore. And I got put on a med board, and that led to my medical separation from the Marine Corps. And I was stationed in Japan, so I was at an overseas duty station, and you can't in the Marine Corps, you can't separate from an OCONUS duty station. All right. So I went through that process, that medical process in Japan. And then I came back to Quantico, headquarters of the Marine Corps, to separate, to finish that separation. That was the duty station that was closest to my home of record. And during that time, I mean, I knew things were going to change, right? My time before was coming to an end. This is what I've done for the past 10 years of my life. So now we're turning the page to a new chapter. And I was starting to think about what is that chapter going to look like? And I think for a lot of service people, You think about moving back to your home of record, right, where you came from. And that's ultimately what I ended up doing. But throughout that process, first things first is I want to say that I had an outstanding command who supported every part of this process. All right, from the command at 9th Engineer Support Battalion in Okinawa, Japan, to the command in Headquarters Marine Corps, Quantico, Virginia. You know, clearly, some people end up going through those proceedings, right? And I felt nothing but supported by my command to make sure that I was set up for success when it came time to drive out of those gates, right? And
Yeah.
leave base. And again, throughout that entire process, uh, I just had great support systems that helped me navigate that and get ready for that next chapter. Because the reality is, whether you serve 2 years, 4 years, 10 years, or 30 years, you're going to leave the service. All right. It's going to happen. And civilian life just looks different than military life. And I also think it's important to note, you know, coming from somebody like me, in my adult professional career, those first 10 years were spent in the Marine Corps, you know, right from high school into the Marines. So there was a lot of unknown or uncertainty, you know, when it came time to make that transition from military life into the civilian population.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point because you didn't have any time after high school where kids sometimes, try things, fail things. They're trying to navigate through adulthood. So you kind of missed that step. So that's really interesting that you should say that. And then the other thing, too, is just like painting that picture of like you're going to drive out off the base, out those gates. Like that's like so vivid. I love that imagery. But yeah, that's interesting. So how did you navigate? What did you decide? You moved home, and then what came after that?
Well, I think it's important to mention that even before I moved home, um, I utilized a program in service, the DoD Skill Bridge program.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, where it allowed me to get an internship before I ended my active service. So I was already on a med board. I was already being processed out.
Mm-hmm.
It was only a matter of time before all of that stuff got wrapped up, and I would leave those gates. So in the meantime, while you're waiting for all of those administrative formalities, all of those proceedings to get done, I just started kind of researching different things I could do now to help me get engaged with a career or some stability, really, after I leave the service. And I came across the DoD Skill Bridge program, um, figured out that, this could probably work for me where I'm at now, getting ready to leave the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
And, I got the paperwork together. I found an internship in Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Oh wow.
Uh, yeah, and I really do credit a lot of that itself in helping set me up for success after I left the Marine Corps, because what that allowed me to do was take advantage of that internship, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm now working for a civilian employer, which for me that was in a marketing and communications department.
Mm-hmm.
At a regional healthcare network. So it gave me the opportunity to do that, but then it also gave me the opportunity, while I was still, technically active duty, to start integrating into that civilian life or civilian
Mm-hmm.
population. Things are different, it requires a different way of thinking. It requires a different mindset. And having access to that program really helped me with that transition. It wasn't as abrupt as, all right, you go pick up your DD 214 and you can leave.
Wow. Yeah.
Instead, it provided this nice buffer to acclimate to what life was going to look like post-military service. And like I said, especially anybody that's listening right now, if you know you're going to get out of the military, you really need to start looking at those programs and opportunities before you leave service. All right, because those programs exist for a purpose, right? They're meant to help service members make that inevitable transition. It's going to happen. You're going to integrate into the civilian population, and you're going to want as many support systems and resources that you can get to set you up for success in that process, in that transition. And the DoD Skill Bridge program definitely helped me with that.
Yeah, and I've heard of Skill Bridge before. And do you know, is it across all 4 branches?
I think so. I think that
I
that
think
is
it is too.
I think that that's a Department of Defense program. Yeah. And even I mean, that was in 2017. So sometime around there, 2017, 2018. It wasn't difficult, to pursue it. Just like anything else, you do the paperwork, you get approval, and those opportunities are out there. And those networks have really grown tremendously, in the sense that there are a lot of opportunities to place a service member with an employer before they leave service. Now more than ever, and I don't mean to go on a tangent, and I think we're going to get to a little bit of this stuff later, but the labor market itself, or the workforce, it has this problem where there's a surplus of jobs and a deficit of people. And what better way, to not only help set transitioning service members up for success, but also businesses and private industry with people that are very well capable to fill these jobs by recruiting transitioning military members.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, you're right. It is. Well, so you've been out of service for 6 years now, and you had shared with me earlier that identity didn't leave you, and that military service adds value to an individual, which I love. Can you tell our listeners about what value military service, and specifically EOD techs, bring to the workforce?
Yeah. I'm not biased, but
not at all, I'm sure.
Not at all. But again, the day that somebody decides to dedicate a portion of their life to service, that starts with kind of this values-based perspective, right? Where from day one, you in the Marine Corps, you learn what honor, courage, and commitment is. And as you said in your question, the identity of a United States Marine has not left me in that sense. All right. Again, things look different now. And there are certain aspects of my time in the service that I have relinquished or divested myself of. Things look different. It's even a way to think about how you're maturing past service into the civilian world, right? You just have to think differently. There's no 0-6 formation to get ready to PT or physically train. There's none of that anymore. So a lot of that structure leaves, but that identity of a service member is definitely something that has stuck with me. And the way I feel like I've operationalized that as a civilian is through this idea of values and values-based business. And I make it a point to live a life of honor, courage, and commitment, because those were the core values that were instilled in me as a United States Marine. But they also translate very well into the civilian workplace. All right. So we're talking about some of those intangibles. All right. What sets people apart? What sets service members apart right from the start is that they have those values. All right. they have those qualities, those laurels, that they really believe and fully operationalize, and any employer out there wants somebody that believes in those ethics, right? That's just that good steward of their military service and now of their employer or community in the civilian world. So I'm really vocal about that in the sense that I do pride myself on values-based business and operationalizing those values of a United States Marine, which is honor, courage, and commitment. Now, when we talk about more of the attributes or skills gained during military service and how those translate into positive qualities in the private sector and the civilian world, the amount of skills that people develop during their time in military service, there's so many, teamwork, critical thinking, communication, delegation, problem solving. In the EOD world, again, that old motto, which I don't know if it's part of the field or not, but initial success or total failure. And that when you hear that and you actually think about what that means, it speaks volumes. All right. In the sense that I'm going to do the best job that I can the first time to produce the best possible outcome. All right. And when you hire or you work with or whatever, a service member, and even specifically an EOD tech, you should expect that they're going to want to do things just a little bit better. All right.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah. I don't mean to sound too crass there or whatnot, but it's not a mediocre life. All right. It's taking that call or that challenge to step up and figure things out. That's what an EOD tech does. You figure it out, right? You work with what you have and you come up with a solution. You figure it out. And even as this is, a lot of organic conversation today, but even that really helps shape what a service member's career can look like post-service, in the sense that you're a problem solver and now you're going to have to figure it out. All right. Nobody will really give you anything because you're a veteran, that's definitely important. And it's definitely a qualifier, but you have to be able to communicate that value. You have to be able to explain to people why fast roping out of a helicopter, is something that they can is a skill or something that can be used of value at their organization. All right. Why participating in operations and missions adds value, why that adds to making you a market differentiator in the sense of employment and business and entrepreneurship as well. So those are definitely the values and qualities and characteristics that are gained, during service, that helped me move forward after that. I don't know. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. In fact, it made me laugh because I remember when I worked at White Wilson, and we were interviewing for I want to say a nurse. And this man came in who was a veteran, and he was, I believe it was Marine Corps, and he was really built, big guy. And we were looking at him like, what? This is like a bull in a china shop. And he was like, we were like, can you give us an example of how you worked as a team successfully? And so he had like this example of like a helicopter on the base. It got like messed up, and it didn't have like the things it needed to land. So like all these men and women were like putting mattresses up, like dragging them from places so that the helicopter could land on a mattress. And we're all just like What? This is crazy. So, anyways, it was just reminding me of that like interview because it was like, yeah, he had like mad skills, like nobody's business. I think that outpatient clinic was a little bit too subdued for him, to be completely honest. I think he ended up working in an ER somewhere. But yeah, there's a lot of skills that you develop in the military that I think people don't have the opportunity to develop in the civilian world. So I think you make a great point.
It's, simply, it's just a lot of that out of the box thinking.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. That's
That,
very valuable. Yeah, to anything, really. So you have had some pretty incredible opportunities to work with Development Dimensions International, Catalyst Connection, and Startup Alleghenies. Can you tell us what you learned working with these organizations and how these experiences led to you starting innovative organizational development?
yeah. That's a great question. And I should first start with, I want to mention somebody specifically.
Uh
And that was with Startup Alleghenies. And that was really my first step into a civilian career,
oh. Mm-hmm.
and it gave me the opportunity to learn, that other way of life, business, entrepreneurship, being part of a team in a different capacity than the military.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Startup Alleghenies gave me that opportunity. And the first person that really took me under her wing, her name was Debbie Prosser. And she's the business development director at Southern Alleghenies Planning and Development Commission. And she's been there for a very long time. Debbie, what's up?
Shout out to Debbie. Love it.
Um, but she really helped me take that step. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And now working in this civilian environment, and doing things a little bit differently. That was my first area of opportunity. And that just opened the doors for me to be able to, progress throughout these other organizations, and learn how to, work and, you know, acclimate to that civilian way of life, right? Which again, it just looks different. So Startup Alleghenies was really my springboard into that. And I feel like it's important for me to call that out now in the sense that I knew I was stepping into a great team.
Mm-hmm.
They knew I was transitioning from the military. And Debbie, along with others, really helped provide that support to help me accelerate my civilian career. At that time, I was helping an early stage entrepreneur program, and early stage entrepreneurs take that first step into business. One thing led to another. I did a graduate certificate at Duquesne University, the professional coach certification program, where I, started to take that step into the people tech arena. People.
Interesting.
Yeah, I went from being a bomb tech in the Marine Corps to being a people tech in the civilian world.
I've never heard that phrase before. Very interesting.
Yeah, and guess which is more difficult? All right,
People.
being a people tech, yeah, for sure. But it's so great. It's so rewarding. And I went from Startup Alleghenies to Development Dimensions International, had the opportunity to work on their global assessment and operations team, doing targeted selection for high profile hires or individuals. So an example would be, like corporate Walmart would want to hire their next COO. And that's a very big decision. And that's a very costly decision. So companies want to make sure that they hire or get the best possible fit for that position, getting it right the first time, because the cost of not is very high. So I had the opportunity. Yeah, I had the opportunity to do that with DDI. during this time, I started my doctoral work at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and then I had the opportunity to support more people operations with Catalyst Connection, which was geared towards the manufacturing industry, which is another soundbite that I kind of just want to throw out here in the sense that I really think the manufacturing industry is and should be appealing to veterans, just because there's a lot of very good jobs that are in demand in the manufacturing industry. And there's all these programs that are built to upskill transitioning service members to fill these jobs, these growing jobs that need to be filled. And the manufacturing industry is a great space to look for those, for a transitioning service member. But Catalyst Connection gave me the opportunity to learn that industry a little bit and work in that capacity. All of those things, all of those experiences, from my time in the Marine Corps to being a bomb tech, startup Alleghenies, Development Dimensions International, Catalyst Connection, have all carried with me, again, that people operations space to start Innovative Organizational Development, which is the company that I lead now. And it's in the people tech space. Yeah.
So what is that? What can you tell us about your organization?
Yeah.
What services do you offer?
Yeah. So Innovative Organizational Development, or InnoOD for short, is a full scope organizational development consultancy. All right. I am in the space of increasing organizational effectiveness and efficiency through people operations. The company itself is broken down into three buckets, if you will. The first is training and development, which is leadership training and development. Leadership's a developable skill, okay? And we have to approach it as such. Most of the time, that gets completely overlooked, especially in private industry, the civilian sectors. A lot of the times, people wait for somebody to get promoted to a team leader or a supervisor when they're now in charge of people. And then deciding to develop those skills, that make them a more effective and efficient leader. That's wrong. All right. Yeah.
Okay, let's start there.
Yeah. Well, not only that, speaking from the administrative scientist perspective here, there's research and literature out there that will support people developing these leadership skills, their ability to develop a capacity to build emotional intelligence, all right, that EQ is more paramount to long-term success in the workplace than just simply being able to perform that technical skill, right? What that's saying is that, all right, we understand and recognize the necessity from day one to start building communication skills, coaching skills. I'm a people coach. I'm an ICF certified professional coach, 500 plus hours of people coaching that continues to grow. But that's anchored in me developing the skill, the methodology and experience, all right, to coach people, to embody this leadership style as leader, as coach, to be good at it. All right. A lot of the times, I'm sure you hear this, and our listeners out there, I'm sure you hear this too. We need to coach our people. That's the exemplar, what's expected now of leadership style. You hear it everywhere. Out of curiosity, have you heard that, Maria? Maybe?
Honestly, no, but I love it.
Yeah. Well, pay attention to that. All right. Because now that I've kind of thrown that out there,
I can see it everywhere.
Yeah, you're going to see it everywhere.
Great.
But it's this idea of developing this skill, all right, to be able to coach people. The opposite of that is kind of that authoritarian, telling style, dictatorial, right, where you're just barking orders, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
believe it or not, that doesn't resonate with people, and it doesn't empower them to self-actualize, all right, to take ownership and responsibility. Um,
Wow. Oh
yeah,
my
to
gosh, I love that so much. I think, I don't know, it's so exciting because it's like we're evolving. Like that's so intelligent, and unfortunately, there's so many organizations I think that do have the more dictatorial bosses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And well, again, that first bucket, leadership training and development,
yeah.
innovative organizational development, is really anchored in that. I have a full service curriculum that I build out to teach these skills in the workplace. All right. But that's just bucket one. Bucket two is that leadership and management consulting,
Hmm.
what I like to call the organizational development space of the house. Everything from strategic planning to succession planning to organizational culture, um, all of those things, that systems thinking approach, when it comes to an organization, my people, the skills, mapping it out, connecting people with people in that company, and we get there through those organizational development initiatives. And then that third bucket is your certified professional coaching, and this is what I love. I mean, I'm passionate about all this stuff, but being a people coach has been my calling. Yeah, post service, and it does just mend really well with everything that I've carried with me in the Marine Corps. And uh, certified professional coaching, all right, really does three things. And for anybody out there listening to this, even especially our service members, people that are still in the military, people that are transitioning out of the military, or veterans that have been transitioned out of the military already. Coaching is one of the best tools for them to utilize in the sense that it does three things. When you sit down with a people coach, uh, you're inventorying where you're at now, all right, where you want to go in the future, and how you're filling that gap. All right. It's like the um, Cadillac when it comes to professional development, in the sense that professional coaching is all about moving people forward into that next step in life. I have come across many veterans actually who have become people coaches or have moved into the people operations space after their service, who have went through some type of education, training, and development, and are now leadership practitioners in that space, that not only have coaches themselves, but wish they would have had that skill while they were in the military. And I just think that that speaks volumes to the profession, and I just think that speaks volumes to the necessity of this idea of coaching people, all right, to reach their aspirations, to do more, to be better, to be that more effective and engaged employee in the workplace, all right.
Hmm. Hmm.
We get there through people interaction. We do a great job this day and age connecting people with technology, right? You can look up just about anything, any type of app, software. Um, we do a great job connecting people with technology, but my company is focused on connecting people with people inside that organization. That
Hmm.
itself becomes a force multiplier. All right.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's
I
what,
want to say something that made me laugh. I was looking at your materials from your organization, and the part that said, "What sets you apart?"
yeah. What's it say?
It says, "We obsess over your organization."
100%.
I was like,
We,
"Wow,
yeah.
yeah."
Every company, again, back to what makes bomb techs great people to work with,
Hmm.
post service. We figure it out. All
Hmm.
right. Every organization looks different.
Yeah.
Okay. Walmart looks different from Walgreens. All right. AT&T looks different from Verizon. At a very surface level, it seems like they all do the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you peel back those layers to figure out the uh, inner workings, of those companies, they're different people. They have different business drivers. They have a different mission, vision, and values. How are we analyzing and inventorying that? How are we presenting it? But how are we creating these leadership training and development, organizational development, professional coaching initiatives to make sense for that company? All right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes innovative organizational development different in the sense that we obsess over your company, and that leads to 100% contextualized consulting that just makes sense for that enterprise. I
Mm-hmm.
hate the idea of cookie cutter trainings. I hate
Yeah.
it. It makes no sense. All right. You pay somebody thousands of dollars to stand up in front of a classroom and read from a script. It it just it doesn't resonate with people. Not
Yeah.
only
Yeah. You're so right.
but not only that, there needs to be some type of transfer of learning in that process. All right. So if we're talking about communication, how does communication apply to you, the individual in the workplace? What's the structure you use to frame your communication? Leadership's a developable skill. Communication's a developable skill. There's a best practice and a process to navigating conversations. All right. We have to learn that in a contextualized environment. And then we need to figure out the ways that we're actually incorporating it in the workplace. All right. So there has to be some type of learning there, or transfer of learning there. There has to be some type of skill development there. And a lot of the times we get there and that reinforcement through the coaching process. Again,
Mm-hmm.
where we're at now, where we're trying to go in the future, and how we're filling that gap in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I really do preach that, especially from the perspective of an OD, organizational development consultant. Not only do we have to talk about these tools that we're using, instructor-led trainings, consulting tools, certified professional coaches, um, how are we continuing to incorporate those things we're learning into the workplace?
Mm-hmm.
That's when you see results. All right,
Mm-hmm.
that's things change. And that's when people become more effective and efficient with each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. So Joe, can you tell us the importance of support systems and finding your tribe, which I found incredibly interesting?
Um, First and foremost, the number one support system that I have had in my life has been my wife. Um, Military
Aw,
spouse.
I love it.
It's yeah. While I was in service, she she will tell you the stories of I mean some of those challenges that you just face you right when you're in that type of environment. I mean the 10.5 years that I was in the Marine Corps, 6.5 of those were spent outside the United States somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
she really has been my rock. And now I have two beautiful boys who are just the greatest thing ever. Yes, aside from this, I'm just a full-time family man. Okay.
Aw, I love that.
And they my family has been my greatest support system. And it's really important to reflect on that, especially as a veteran. But post military service, um, cultivating support systems and finding your tribe has been very important. And I say that in the sense that you need to find your tribe, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
the people that make you feel good about yourself, the people that make you feel supported and engaged. And that engagement and trying to find that type of people or those types of groups has been very helpful to me. I think so, you know, in the sense of just constantly trying to surround myself with people that I find supporting and uplifting. Again, that saying, you become a product of your environment, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
even as we talk about when we talk about, you know, things on the podcast today, behind the warrior, removing the stigma, all that stuff, I feel like a lot of the times veterans, instead of staying engaged with a healthy environment,
Mm-hmm.
become withdrawn after they leave after they leave the service.
Yes. Yes.
And that's hard. That's
Mm-hmm.
different. Um, but finding that support system and finding your tribe helps you stay engaged in a proactive way to make sure that you're surrounding and building a constructive and supportive environment post service. For
Mm-hmm.
me, not only with the employers, you know, that I've had the opportunity to work with, or the entrepreneurial community, and the business community that I kick around now, um, these academic programs that I've been a part of, Duquesne University Professional Coach Certification Program, Indiana University Administration and Leadership Studies, PhD. Um, these have put me in places that I have just felt surrounded by people who are supportive, like-minded, you know, and want to uh, just help each other, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all about finding those support systems and finding your tribe to be engaged with. Again, the
Mm-hmm.
opposite of that is leaving military service and becoming withdrawn,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because,
Yeah.
like I said before, um, nobody's going to give you anything because you're a veteran. All right. Instead, you have to take those steps to be proactive, to find the groups that you fit in with.
Mm-hmm.
Find the environment and people that support you, and they're out there. Not only are there organizations like yours, EOD Warrior Foundation, you know, Military One Source, Wounded Warrior, all those organizations, but when you get out in your local community and you peel back these layers and you just start connecting and interacting with people, um, I think that you just find overwhelming support for the veteran population. All right,
Mm-hmm.
but as a former military member, you have to engage with those different groups. You have to
Right.
take the steps to find your tribe, you know, and uh, yeah,
I love that message, and it makes me think of so when I pick my daughter up at the bus stop, there's a group of moms, and I want to say like 2 weeks ago, I don't know how we got on the topic, but one of the moms started talking about masterclass, and I was like, oh, she's like, every time I get on the plane, like I always look to see if they have masterclass because I love it and I learned so many amazing things. And I was like, I have masterclass and I've not once taken one of the classes. Like I thought it was such a cool thing. And I bought it and then I never used it. So she's like, oh my gosh, like you should share your subscription with me. Or like she was telling me she had watched one on negotiation. It was like former FBI agent that was teaching about the art of negotiation, and she said it was phenomenal. And I was like, I feel uplifted. Like I feel like this mom just like helped me because I went home and I looked at masterclass and I started a course. So I think like your point of like finding your tribe, but some people might be in a tribe that's like not necessarily a good tribe. Like you have to find the tribe that's like lifting you up and making you a better person.
yeah, and
So
well, and thanks for pointing that out, because I think that that's such a great point. You know,
mm-hmm,
um, sometimes you put yourself in an environment that just isn't healthy,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And being able to recognize that is so important, because we don't want people to become withdrawn, you know,
Yeah.
from society, really, after they leave the service, you know. And there are a lot of those unhealthy things out there that can quickly snowball into becoming dislocated from life, you know,
Mm-hmm,
really, post service. And I think another good thing to point out here is that although we leave the military, I still have brothers and sisters that are very much part of that tribe. I still have the people that I can talk to and call, and friends, from service, who now just live all over the place. Some are still in, some are doing different things, but they're still very much part of my internal community.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very much a resource and support system post service for the people that I served with. And I say that in the sense of people listening today. You still have those relationships, you still have those connections. And I love talking to people that I was in the Marine Corps with, not only to be
Mm-hmm.
reminiscent of our times serving together, but just hearing what they're doing, and their
Mm-hmm.
story and how they're figuring it out. And I find that inspirational. Um, Not only that, again, talking about our tribe and support systems, I mean, even just this week, I've been connected with two other, business owners here in the greater Pittsburgh region who are military veterans, and it's very synergistic in a way, when you connect with another veteran business owner, you kind of know what to expect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about that tribe, that community, the people that you engage yourself with, and the environment that you put yourself in. Those resources are out there. And I credit a lot of the trajectory that I've been on to the people and the environment that I've been surrounding myself with. So
Mm-hmm.
great points, Maria.
So important. So I personally love the concept of manifesting. So can you share your thoughts on and your belief that we manifest our intentions? What does that mean?
Yes, I do believe that. All
Uh-huh.
right. In the sense that what we're talking about when you throw the word manifesting out there is our mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what we mean by that is that we have these attitudes, thoughts, and belief systems that we operationalize in a sense that those specific thoughts are going to lead you to your next accomplishment. It's the growth mindset, right? In a sense that we're moving forward. And when we manifest positive thoughts or positive emotional attractors, we tend to gravitate towards that. All right. This idea that I can do something, I am smart enough. I can take that next step. I can start this business. All of that in its mental state is a positive reinforcement that helps people move forward and cultivate their success. All right. That can look like something as simple as waking up and starting with a mantra. All right. Of, yeah, stepping into the day.
I love it.
Yeah. Like seize the day. All
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Win it. Again, because today's November 17th, 2023, we only get one of them. And it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so how are you maximizing your potential through this idea of manifesting your mindset? All right. And there's a lot of science that goes into that too, talking about the neuroplasticity up there, how you cultivate these messages and how you operationalize them.
Mm-hmm.
Another great plug for coaching. All right. Because it does a lot of that. But even as a service member, even thinking back on our conversation today, how am I taking all of this wealth of experience, all right, from my time serving? And how is that adding value and continuing to move me forward in life to help achieve all the things that I want to accomplish? That's manifestation right
Mm-hmm.
there. Folks. All right. How are we bottling all of that up? And how are we using it to our advantage to continue to accelerate and do more in life?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love that you say intention because I think it also, brings you to mindfulness because like most people probably, myself included, sometimes it's like, well, what is my intention? Like it really causes like self-reflection. Like what am I intending to do? And if I don't know that, then you're I guess not moving forward.
Yeah. And great point. When you ask yourself, what am I intending to do?
Uh-huh.
Uh, that's taking an inventory of where you're at now, right?
Yeah.
What am I really trying to accomplish here? Then that forces you to reflect on where you're trying to go in the future. All right. And then back to that three-pronged approach to coaching. Now you have to fill that gap,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And let's link this to the bomb tech field. All right. Um, yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Again, that motto, initial success or total failure, right? I've said it before. I've divested myself of that.
Hmm.
I had to mature mentally in that sense that you just can't live by that anymore in the civilian world, right? It's not initial success or total failure.
Hmm.
Instead, I now embody this mindset of progress over perfectionism. And that's so important in the sense that what am I doing every day to just help move that ball one roll forward? All right. What am I doing to take one step forward today? All right. To make that progress, to manifest my destiny,
Hmm.
um, to try to be the best person that I can be, as a father, as a husband, as a business leader, as a community steward, as a United States Marine. We're carrying all those experiences with us. How are
Hmm.
we operationalizing those? And how are we utilizing them to live healthy, successful lives? We get there through mindset, coaching, and ultimately moving forward.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So, we said it was going to be an interactive. So, challenge all of our listeners to do the inventory, right? Like, what are your intentions? Where are you trying to go? That's awesome.
But not only that, reflect back to your time in service.
Hmm.
What value does that add to your life? How are you operationalizing that? How are you putting that into practice?
Hmm.
Uh, Again, think the things I was saying today. Your identity does as a service member does not leave. Um, it looks different, right? Now I have an awesome beard and I slick my hair back, but
That's fun.
my identity as a Marine in some ways has never been more present,
Hmm.
because I feel like there's still this call to service, right? That we as service members, as United States Marines, as bomb techs, we have a responsibility
Hmm.
um, to be good community stewards, to advocate for more, to be better. Um, and I don't know. There's no other way I look at it. I guess that's just how I feel and how I believe. Post service.
Well, I love that you keep kind of circling back to the concept of service, and that kind of leads me into a question I did want to ask: is how do you advocate for positive change in local and global communities? How do you do
That's a that's a big,
that?
um, and I do advertise that in my bio.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of ways to explore that. How do you advocate for positive change in local and global communities? And I'll link this back to what I was saying earlier. As a United States Marine, I feel that it's just important to be out there and tell these stories, all right, to really advocate for our veteran network out there and how that network itself provides so much value to the global workforce, the civilian
Hmm.
population in the world. The way I've been doing that is just by getting out there, by telling my story, by things like this, the podcast, but getting other people to listen, all right,
Hmm.
to think differently, and for veterans to understand that these opportunities exist for you out there. That doesn't matter if it's a corporate job or you're retraining to equip yourself with another skill. Um, you need to be out there. We need to tell these stories, and we need to, again, be good community stewards in the sense that I don't know. I feel like people expect more from me because of my service,
Hmm.
and I feel like I need to live up to that expectation. And being an advocate for a different way of doing things, better support, better veterans networks, is the way I like to feel I'm having an impact, I guess, and moving that ball forward.
Well, I can definitely say that you are an extremely inspirational person, and I'm sure an amazing coach, because just sitting down with you today, I feel a sense of pride for my service. You know, it's like, and I think maybe a lot of veterans out there, they think, oh, well, it wasn't that big of a deal, or maybe my career field was an EOD. But really, for all veterans, I think like you really kind of are instilling this sense of pride in your service. You're serving your country, and maybe causing people to reflect more on the value of that. I love that message, Joe.
Well, and you should feel pride because of your military service, hands down. All right. Oh, I can't remember. I just saw it this week. It was some study, from somewhere recently. I think it said the majority of the adult population who's eligible or in the ages of service isn't eligible in some way to serve. All right.
Wow.
Something like that. Fact check me on that. And somebody can drop me a line there. But what does that tell you? That tells you that the minority of people, all right, who make that commitment to join service are different. It's a different way of life, all right? It's a commitment. And you need to be proud of that, all right? Not only that, you need to take every opportunity you get to showcase that and explain why, all right, that adds value, why that makes you different, and how that shaped you into the person you are today.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love this interview, and I hope that our listeners really got a lot out of this. A lot of different tips on how just to move yourself forward. So thank you so much for all of that. And I do want to ask, because I know you're working on your PhD, what does the future hold for you? What are you striving towards?
That's a great question. And at the end of the day, I just want to have a lasting impact, on the clients that I work with, on the people that I'm privileged to collaborate with. I'm on a mission to make a more effective and efficient workplace for people in industry. And not only does that look like continuing to, grow innovative organizational development, but that is also going to lead to lasting new relationships, even connecting here with the EOD Warrior Foundation today, and building this synergistic community of like-minded people who are constantly moving that ball forward, who are striving to do things better and who want to do things a little bit differently. So the future holds a lot. And
what is it? The sky is the limit.
The sky's the limit.
Yeah.
But we'll check in a few years and let you know how things are going.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Well, and I do want to say too, just listening to you, I think it's so neat that you had given a shout out to one of your early mentors, and it definitely seems like you're paying it forward. So.
No, of course, and
that's awesome.
I mean, well, I'd be ignorant to say that if it wasn't for the other people around me really cultivating my success, our success, wherever you're at, nobody would ever get that opportunity. All right. That's, again, it's that life of service is being able to recognize not only what you're doing, all right, and how you're continuing to serve, but how other people are giving you that platform and advocating for your success. All right. And I gave a shout out to Debbie opening up, and, really she was one of those people that helped me take that first step into civilian life. And I've just been fortunate enough to be surrounded with multiple individuals, throughout that way, that have just become tremendous support systems to me. And at the end of the day, it's not rocket science, right? It's simply people helping people. And that's it, and in fact, as long as I feel like I'm helping people, um, then I'm okay. My mission is fulfilled. All right. And yeah.
Cool. Well, so anybody who's listening who's like, "Hey, this resonates with me. I want to reach out. I want to get involved. I want to take a mentoring class." Where can they
Yeah.
find you?
Yeah. So first and foremost, send me an email, joe@innood.com. That's INNOOD.com. That's short for Innovative Organizational Development. You can also go to my website, which is innood.com, INNOOD.com, where you can learn more about me, what I'm doing, and ways for us to work together. Or give me a phone call. All right. 814-961-1480. I love to talk.
You're a
Yeah.
very good communicator.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love to talk. You probably got that through this podcast, right? So, but seriously, and I do mean that, especially for anybody that just wants to have a conversation. I don't care what it's. All right, reach out to me. Let's connect. Let's do something.
Cool. That's so cool. Okay, awesome. Well, Joe, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. Very inspiring and great information. So, we're going to end the interview with our tradition of asking you a couple of your favorite things.
Let's do it.
Okay. So, the first one, and I'm very curious to know what this is. What is your favorite inspirational quote?
Being advanced is brilliance in the basics. Quote.
I have never heard that before.
Well, and I doubt that anybody has heard that before because I was told this while I was a bomb tech. And the person that told this to me, he probably doesn't even remember this. Hey, I quote you all the time. Zach Hemmerling was his name. All right. And we had a problem, we had a situation, we had a scenario. We were trying to think through a solution, and he kind of reined everybody in and said, being advanced is brilliance in the basics. And that is just something that has resonated with me wherever I go. And I cite that quote all the time while I'm talking, while I'm teaching, while I'm training. And it's so true in the sense that we need to remember the basic fundamental skills and tools that we have in business, in life, in the corporate arena, whatever that is, and we need to develop those basic skills, all right, because that's what everything else is anchored in, understanding the rudimentary concepts that can be applied in advanced ways. It all comes back to that basic framework. All right. And being advanced is brilliance in the basics. I think it's great. So thank you, Zach.
I do too. I love it. You didn't disappoint me with that. Okay. What is your favorite, or no, not what, who is your favorite artist?
My wife.
Oh, that's so sweet. What kind of art?
It's true. She was an art major in college. And she does a bunch of different things. We have, I think it's shibori or something like that. It's like a fabric canvas that she does, that she's made a bunch of really cool pieces. But she's really talented.
Does she have a website?
She doesn't, no.
Does she have an Etsy?
I think she should. So, yeah.
Well, we need to encourage her, and then we can share it whenever she gets it.
Yeah, no, she's really talented. We have pieces of hers hanging up around the house, and
oh, that's awesome. How cool.
If you were asking for famous artists, being in the greater Pittsburgh region, Andy Warhol, of course.
Oh, really?
That's fine. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Andy Warhol. Okay. Where is your favorite vacation spot?
Colorado.
Really? Colorado. Where? Where in Colorado?
Well, we go out a couple times a year. We have family that live just north of Denver. So it's the Thornton, Morrison area. But Yeah, it's just a nice place to pop out to and kind of explore that wilderness a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's beautiful there. Okay, and last one. I always love this one because everybody loves to eat. What's your favorite food or your favorite meal?
Favorite meal, meatloaf sandwich, fries or mashed potatoes with coleslaw.
Wow.
Yeah.
Meatloaf. That's hilarious. My mom just made a meatloaf this week. And it was so good. And she kind of gave me this life hack on that. Instead of breadcrumbs, she used top stuffing.
Ooh.
Yeah. And Worcestershire sauce. I love that stuff. But yeah, I was like, who would have thought stovetop stuffing for your meatloaf? You should try that.
Well, did she have coleslaw with it?
No, but they love coleslaw. So that's a great combo. That sounds like a good combo.
Yeah.
And it's almost lunchtime, so now I'm hungry. Thank you. All right, Joe. Well, thank you again so much. Like I said, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We wish you the best of luck with your PhD, and we will absolutely have to circle back up and find out what you move into.
Yeah. Thank you. And I really mean that. Not only for the opportunity to have this conversation, but to continue to be connected with a great group like yourselves. The EOD Warrior Foundation, it's no secret. You guys are just doing a bunch of great work, and it's needed. So I definitely look forward to following that, and staying connected any way possible as we continue to move forward.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Joe. We appreciate that. We'll definitely stay connected. And for all of our listeners, I think this is, kind of a call to action from Mr. Joe to take an inventory and see where it is you want to go. So thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to our Behind the Warrior podcast, brought to you by the EOD Warrior Foundation. The EOD Warrior Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization serving the EOD community by providing financial assistance, scholarships, and providing hope and wellness resources for the active duty, reserve, National Guard, retired, and veteran EOD communities and their families. We also honor our fallen and wounded EOD technicians by maintaining the EOD Memorial and Remembrance Garden. We do all this through the generosity of individual and corporate donors and sponsors. If you would like to assist the foundation or support our Behind the Warrior podcast, click the link on our webpage at eodwarriorfoundation.org or contact us at info@eodwarriorfoundation.org. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell a friend. The various opinions, beliefs, and viewpoints expressed by guests, contributors, and participants of the Behind the Warrior podcast are their own and are intended for informational purposes only. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions, beliefs, viewpoints, or policies of the EOD Warrior Foundation or its employees and volunteers.